I am Bredon, 34 years old, a single father to my 7-year-old son, Noah. 3 years ago, I lost my wife Julia in a car accident, leaving me to raise our son alone. Financial struggle forced us to move back with my parents and sister in Boston. I never imagined my family would betray us so deeply, until I came home one stormy night to find my son shivering outside, bruised and crying, while my family watched TV inside, laughing. If you have experienced family injustice, like this video, subscribe, and let me know where you are watching from. Before everything fell apart, Julia and I had built a beautiful life together in our small Chicago apartment. We met during college, married young, and welcomed Noah into our world 5 years later. Julia was an elementary school art teacher, bringing creativity and warmth to everything she touched. I worked as a graphic designer for a marketing firm, not making a fortune, but earning enough to keep us comfortable in our modest 2-bedroom apartment. Noah was our world. Every evening after dinner, the three of us would walk to the neighborhood park where Noah would chase squirrels and collect interesting leaves while Julia and I talked about our day. We had movie nights every Friday with homemade popcorn and blanket forts. Weekends were for adventures to museums, the zoo, or just exploring different neighborhoods. Life was simple but perfect in its own way. Then came that rainy Tuesday in October. Julia was driving home from school when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into her car. She died on impact. I still remember the police officers at our door, their faces solemn as they delivered the news that shattered our world. Noah was only 4 years old, too young to fully understand that Mommy was never coming home again. The following months were a blur of funeral arrangements, grief counseling, and trying to explain death to a confused and heartbroken child. Noah would wake up crying for his mother night after night. I would hold him close, my own tears falling silently as I whispered that Mommy was now a star watching over us. During the day, I tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but inside I was drowning in grief and responsibilities. The financial strain hit us hard. Without Julia's income and with the added expense of childcare, our savings quickly dwindled. I tried working from home to be with Noah, but my productivity suffered, and my boss became increasingly impatient. Then came the layoffs, and I was among the first to go. Freelance work kept us afloat for a while, but it was inconsistent and often paid less than I needed. After almost 2 years of struggling, maxing out credit cards, and taking loans from friends, I made the difficult decision to move back to my parents' house in the suburbs of Boston. I told Noah it would be an adventure, that we would have Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Cassandra to keep us company. Deep down, I hoped that being surrounded by family would help heal our wounded hearts. My parents, Diana and Gregory, had a spacious 4-bedroom house with plenty of room for Noah and me. Mom had retired from her nursing career, and Dad was a financial consultant who often worked from home. My younger sister, Cassandra, had also moved back after college, occupying the bedroom across from what would become Noah's room. She worked as a marketing executive for a tech company, mostly remotely but with occasional trips to their Boston office. From the beginning, there were signs that I chose to ignore. When we arrived with our belongings, Cassandra barely looked up from her phone to greet us. Mom fussed over our appearance, commenting that Noah looked underfed and that I had aged terribly since Julia's death. Dad helped with the luggage, but kept asking when I planned to get back on my feet. That first dinner together was tense. Noah accidentally spilled his milk, and Cassandra rolled her eyes, muttering something about needing childproof everything now. Mom quickly cleaned up the mess, but not before giving Noah a stern look that made him shrink in his chair. Dad changed the subject to job prospects in the area, subtly suggesting that my stay should be temporary. Cassandra had always been the golden child. 3 years younger than me, she was the surprise baby who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Growing up, her tantrums were indulged, her mediocre achievements celebrated as exceptional, and her mistakes quickly forgiven. Now at 31, she carried that sense of entitlement into adulthood, expecting the world to bend to her wishes. Mom continuously defended Cassandra's behavior, no matter how rude or unreasonable. If Cassandra snapped at Noah for being too loud during her work calls, Mom would say, "Your aunt is very important at her company, Noah. You need to be quieter when she's working." If Cassandra complained about having to share the bathroom, Mom would rearrange the morning schedule to give her daughter priority. Dad, ever the peacekeeper, avoided confrontation at all costs. When tensions rose, he would retreat to his study or garage, leaving Mom to manage the household dynamics. His philosophy was simple: keep your head down, do your work, and stay out of trouble. This approach had served him well in his career, but created a household where problems festered beneath the surface, rather than being addressed openly. I tried to convince myself that this arrangement was temporary, that Noah and I just needed time to save money and find our footing again. I told myself that families have adjustment periods, that we all needed time to learn how to live together. I believed that the occasional cold shoulder from Cassandra or critical comment from Mom was just part of the growing pains of our new living situation. How wrong I was. How blind I had been to the toxic family system I had brought my vulnerable son into. I should have seen the warning signs, should have recognized that the childhood dynamics were still very much alive in that house. But grief and desperation had clouded my judgment, and Noah would pay the price for my mistake. The first month living with my family was challenging but manageable. Noah started at his new elementary school, and I found part-time work at a local design agency while searching for something more permanent. We established routines and tried our best to adapt to the new environment. Noah, resilient as children often are, adjusted to his new school faster than I expected. He made friends with a boy named Tyler who lived down the street, and they would play together after school. His teacher, Mrs. Thompson, was kind and understanding when I explained our situation. She sent home regular updates about his progress and made sure he received extra attention when he had difficult days. But at home, things grew increasingly tense. Cassandra's initial indifference toward Noah evolved into open annoyance. She complained about everything: his toys scattered in the living room, his laughter when he watched cartoons, even the way he ate his cereal. "Does he have to make that much noise when he chews?" she would ask at breakfast, glaring at my son over her coffee mug. One afternoon, Noah was playing with his toy cars in the hallway when Cassandra tripped over one. Instead of watching where she was going or politely asking him to move his toys, she kicked the car across the room, narrowly missing Noah's head. "This isn't a daycare center," she snapped. "Keep your junk in your room where no one has to deal with it." Noah looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and I calmly asked Cassandra if she could be more patient with him. She stormed off to her room, slamming the door. Later that evening, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "You need to control your son better, Bredon," she said in a hushed voice. "Cassandra is under a lot of pressure at work. She just got assigned to lead a major project, and she needs peace and quiet to focus." "Noah is 7 years old, Mom," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "He's being as good as any child his age. Cassandra needs to understand that children make noise and have toys." Mom shook her head, disappointment evident in her expression. "You always were too soft. That's probably why Noah is so undisciplined. Julia would have raised him with more structure." That comment stung like a physical blow. Using Julia against me, suggesting she would disapprove of how I was raising our son, was a low blow that left me speechless. I walked away before saying something I might regret, but the incident set a precedent. Whenever there was conflict between Cassandra and Noah, Mom would defend her daughter and criticize my parenting. As weeks passed, the incidents multiplied. Cassandra, accidentally, deleted a drawing Noah had been working on for school when she needed to use the computer. She forgot to pick him up from soccer practice, leaving him waiting alone for an hour in the rain until I could leave work early to get him. Each time there was an excuse, and each time my parents minimized the impact on Noah. Noah began to change. My once talkative, cheerful boy became quiet and watchful. He started asking if he could eat dinner in our room instead of with the family. He stopped bringing friends home and became anxious about making any noise in the house. One night, I found him playing with his action figures in the closet because he was afraid Aunt Cassandra would yell at him if she heard him in the bedroom. I tried talking to Dad one weekend when Mom and Cassandra were out shopping. We sat on the back porch, watching Noah play by himself in the yard. "I am concerned about how Cassandra treats Noah," I said carefully. "He's becoming anxious and withdrawn." Dad sighed, taking a sip of his beer. "Your sister has always been high-strung. You know that. She will calm down eventually. But in the meantime, Noah is suffering. He's afraid in what should be his home." Dad looked uncomfortable. "Look, son, we are happy to have you both here, but this is primarily Cassandra's home too. She was here first, and she contributes financially to the household. You need to help Noah understand that he needs to accommodate others." I was stunned. My 7-year-old son, who had lost his mother and his home, was expected to accommodate an adult woman's temper tantrums. I realized then that Dad would never take my side, never stand up for Noah. To him, peace at any price was the goal, even if that price was paid by my innocent child. My work situation complicated matters further. The design agency where I worked was 30 minutes away, and they often needed me to stay late to finish projects. I would call home to check on Noah, and Mom would assure me everything was fine, but when I returned, Noah often seemed upset or withdrawn. When I asked what happened, he would just say, "Nothing," but his eyes told a different story. I started looking for apartments we could afford, but Boston's rental market was brutal. Everything within my budget was either in dangerous neighborhoods or so far from work and Noah's school that the commute would be impossible. I felt trapped, watching my son shrink further into himself while my family normalized and enabled Cassandra's cruelty. One night, Noah wet the bed, something he hadn't done since he was 4. When I asked if something had scared him, he burst into tears. "Aunt Cassandra said if I make any noise tomorrow during her big meeting, she will send me away to a school for bad kids where I will never see you again." Fury rose within me. I marched to Cassandra's room and confronted her. She laughed it off, saying she was just joking and that Noah was too sensitive. "Maybe if you didn't baby him so much, he wouldn't take everything so seriously," she said dismissively. I reported the incident to my parents, but they minimized it just as I expected. Mom suggested that Noah needed therapy since he obviously had issues adjusting to life without his mother. Dad mumbled something about everyone needing to try harder to get along. That night, I held Noah close as he fell asleep, promising myself that I would find us a way out of this situation. I had no idea that things were about to get much worse, that the true colors of my family would be revealed in a way that would change our lives forever. The day that everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I dropped Noah off at school, kissed his forehead, and reminded him that I would be working late because of an important client presentation. Normally, Mom picked Noah up from school on my late days, but she had a doctor's appointment, so Cassandra grudgingly agreed to collect him instead. "Just keep him quiet when you get home," she told me that morning over breakfast. I have a video call with the VP of Marketing about my promotion at 4 o'clock. I will text him a reminder to use his indoor voice, I promised, grateful that she was helping despite her obvious reluctance. "Thanks for picking him up, Cass." She shrugged, already scrolling through her phone. "Whatever. Just make sure he doesn't touch my stuff." The weather forecast predicted heavy rain and thunderstorms for the afternoon. I packed Noah's raincoat and boots in his backpack, reminding him to put them on before leaving school. He nodded solemnly. My son had become so careful, so mindful of every action since we moved in with my family. Sometimes I missed the carefree boy who used to splash in puddles without worrying about wet footprints on the floor. My workday was intense. Our team was pitching designs for a major advertising campaign, and as the newest member, I felt pressure to prove my worth. The hours flew by in a blur of revisions and rehearsals. Around 3:30, I received a text from Cassandra confirming she had picked up Noah. I breathed a sigh of relief and refocused on the presentation. At home, according to what Noah later told me, things started peacefully enough. Cassandra set him up at the kitchen table with his homework and a snack while she prepared for her video call. Noah worked quietly on his math problems, occasionally asking for help, which Cassandra provided with terse instructions. When he finished his homework, Noah asked if he could draw for a while. Cassandra agreed, apparently relieved that he had a quiet activity to keep him occupied during her important call. She set up her laptop in the dining room, positioned perfectly with a professional-looking bookshelf in the background. Noah sat on the floor of the living room, just around the corner from the dining room, with his colored pencils and paper. He was working on a special drawing of our family, including a smiling angel in the sky that represented his mother. He was so engrossed in his artwork that he didn't notice the storm intensifying outside, thunder rumbling closer. At precisely 4 o'clock, Cassandra's laptop chimed with an incoming call. She straightened her blazer, put on a professional smile, and connected with her boss and several other executives. This was her moment, the culmination of months of work and networking. The VP began discussing her potential promotion, praising her recent project management. Noah, meanwhile, decided he was thirsty. He quietly padded to the kitchen to get a glass of water, careful not to make noise as he had been repeatedly instructed. On his way back to his drawing, a massive thunderclap shook the house. Startled, Noah jumped, and his glass of water slipped from his hand. The glass didn't break, but water splashed everywhere, including onto Cassandra's open laptop bag on the floor beside the dining table. Her personal laptop was inside, along with several important documents and her phone. Water seeped into the bag as Noah stood frozen in horror. On the video call, Cassandra continued speaking professionally, unaware of the disaster unfolding just out of frame. Noah, panicking, ran to the kitchen to grab a towel. He returned and was desperately trying to dry the laptop bag when Cassandra noticed the movement. She glanced down, saw the water and Noah with the towel, and her expression transformed from professional poise to unbridled rage in an instant. She abruptly excused herself from the call, claiming a technical issue, and slammed her laptop shut. What happened next, pieced together from Noah's traumatized account and the evidence I later found, still makes my blood boil. Cassandra grabbed Noah by the arm so roughly that her fingernails left marks on his skin. She screamed directly into his face, "Your brat ruined my day. You stupid, careless little monster." Noah, terrified and crying, tried to apologize, tried to explain it was an accident caused by the thunder. But Cassandra was beyond reason. She dragged him through the house toward the front door, continuing her tirade. I was about to get promoted. Do you know how important that call was? Of course you don't, because you're just a worthless little burden that no one wants. She yanked open the front door. The storm was in full force now, rain lashing down in sheets, the wind howling. Without hesitation, Cassandra shoved Noah onto the porch. Maybe standing out here will teach you to be more careful in other people's houses. Noah cried, begging to be let in, promising to be better. Cassandra's response was to grab his drawing from the living room floor, tear it to pieces in front of him, and throw the scraps into the rain. Then she slammed the door and locked it. Noah pounded on the door, sobbing and drenched within seconds in the downpour. The temperature had dropped with the storm, and he was wearing only a t-shirt and jeans. Lightning flashed dangerously close, followed by deafening thunder that sent him cowering against the door. Inside, the commotion had drawn my parents from different parts of the house. According to Noah, who could hear through the door, Mom asked Cassandra what was happening. The little brat spilled water all over my work stuff during my promotion call, Cassandra explained, her voice still tight with anger. Where is he now? Dad asked. Cooling off outside, Cassandra replied. Maybe the rain will wash some sense into him. Noah, shivering and crying, heard what my mother said next, words that would forever change my perception of her. Good. He needs to learn his value in this house. Breedon spoils him too much. A little discomfort won't kill the boy. Then came the sound that broke Noah's heart and would later fuel my rage. Laughter. They were laughing as they walked away from the door, leaving a terrified child alone in a dangerous storm. Noah sat on the porch steps, rain soaking him to the skin, thunder and lightning terrorizing him further. He had no jacket, no shelter, nowhere to go. Our neighbors weren't home, and he was too afraid to leave the porch. He told me later that he kept thinking about his mother, wondering if she could see him from heaven and if she was trying to help him somehow. I finished my presentation around 6:30, packed up quickly, and drove through the storm toward home. Traffic was terrible due to the weather, with several accidents slowing the journey. I tried calling home twice, but no one answered, which I attributed to power outages from the storm. When I finally pulled into our driveway just after 7, I was unprepared for the sight that greeted me. There was Noah, my son, huddled against the front door, soaking wet, lips blue with cold, arms wrapped around himself in a futile attempt to find warmth. Even through the rain streaking my windshield, I could see he was shaking violently. I have never moved so fast in my life. I was out of the car and up the steps in seconds, gathering my drenched, freezing child into my arms. His skin was ice cold, his clothes completely saturated. When he saw me, he broke into fresh sobs, clinging to me with desperate strength. Daddy, he choked out between chattering teeth. Aunt C. Cassandra, S said I ruined everything, and I had to stay outside. I carried him to the car, cranked the heat to maximum, and wrapped him in the emergency blanket I kept in the trunk. Only when he had stopped shivering quite so violently did I approach the house, my son cradled protectively in my arms, fury building with each step. I kicked the front door open, not bothering with my key. The sudden bang made everyone in the living room jump. There they were, my family, comfortably watching TV together. Cassandra lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Mom was knitting in her favorite armchair. Dad had his newspaper open, feet propped on the ottoman. The scene of domestic tranquility was so at odds with my son's condition that for a moment I could only stare in disbelief. What happened to the doorbell? Dad grumbled, looking up from his paper. Then they noticed Noah, still wrapped in the emergency blanket, his face pale and tear-streaked, his body trembling against my chest. "Why was my son locked outside in a thunderstorm?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Cassandra rolled her eyes. "He ruined my promotion interview by spilling water all over my laptop bag. He needed to learn a lesson about being careful with other people's property." "A lesson," I repeated, struggling to control my mounting rage. "He's been outside for almost 3 hours in a lightning storm. He's 7 years old." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Mom interjected, setting her knitting aside. "It was just a little rain. Children need to learn consequences." I carried Noah to the downstairs bathroom, ignoring their dismissive attitudes for the moment. I needed to take care of my son first. I turned on the shower to a warm temperature and helped Noah out of his soaked clothes. That's when I saw them. Bruises forming on his upper arm in the distinct pattern of finger marks, and scratch marks where nails had dug into his skin. "Did Aunt Cassandra do this to you?" I asked gently. Noah nodded, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. "She grabbed me really hard and shook me. She called me a worthless burden. Something snapped inside me then." I helped Noah into the warm shower, instructing him to stay there until he felt warm again, and told him I would get him clean clothes. Then I grabbed my phone and took pictures of his bruised arm before the marks could fade. I stormed back into the living room, fury radiating from every pore. "Cassandra physically assaulted my son," I stated flatly, holding up my phone to show the pictures of Noah's bruises. "She left fingertip bruises on his arm. Do you know what that's called? Child abuse. It's a criminal offense." Cassandra's face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered her composure. "He's exaggerating. I barely touched him. You know how easily children bruise." "Are you calling my son a liar?" I asked, stepping closer to her. "I'm saying he's a dramatic child who clearly learned manipulation from his father," she spat back, standing up to face me. "The brat spilled water on my work equipment during the most important call of my career. He's lucky all I did was put him outside for a little while." Mom jumped to Cassandra's defense immediately. "Breedon, you're overreacting. Cassandra was just disciplining Noah. You should be grateful she's helping raise him since his mother isn't around." That comment ignited something primal within me. "My wife is dead, Mom. She didn't abandon us. And Cassandra isn't helping raise my son. She's terrorizing him. She locked him outside in a thunderstorm where he could have been struck by lightning or developed hypothermia." "Lower your voice," Dad warned, finally entering the conversation. "The neighbors will hear." "Good," I shouted, beyond caring about appearances. "Let them hear. Let them know what kind of people you really are." I took out my phone again, but this time I opened the voice recorder app and hit record. "Let's get everything on the record, shall we? Cassandra, you admit you put Noah outside during the storm because he accidentally spilled water." Cassandra crossed her arms defensively. "Yes, and I would do it again. The little monster needs discipline. And you left him out there for nearly 3 hours." "I forgot he was out there," she shrugged. "I was busy trying to salvage my career after his carelessness." "And you too," I turned to my parents. "You knew Noah was outside in the storm, and you did nothing." Dad looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Mom, however, was unrepentant. "We supported Cassandra's decision. That boy needs to learn respect." I laughed bitterly. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? Where was the respect for Noah's safety? Where was the respect for him as a human being?" "Oh, please," Cassandra interjected with a dismissive wave. "It's not like he's fragile. Kids are resilient." "He lost his mother," I shouted, my control slipping further. He's been through more trauma in his short life than most adults. And instead of offering him love and support, you treat him like an inconvenience. Well, that's exactly what he is, Cassandra snapped, her true feelings finally emerging. An inconvenience. A burden. Why should we have to change our lives because you couldn't make it on your own? Mom nodded in agreement. We've been more than generous letting you both stay here. The least Noah could do is behave himself. I stood there, phone recording, as the truth of how my family viewed us became painfully clear. We weren't family to them. We were burdens, unwelcome guests who should be grateful for whatever scraps of decency they chose to throw our way. The bathroom door opened, and Noah emerged in his bathrobe, looking small and vulnerable. He froze when he saw the tense standoff in the living room. I quickly went to him, positioning myself between him and the others. "Get your things, buddy," I said softly. "We're leaving." "Leaving?" Mom scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous. Where will you go? You can barely afford gas for your car." "Anywhere is better than here," I replied, guiding Noah toward the stairs. As we turned to go, Cassandra delivered the final blow, the words that severed any remaining connection I felt to my birth family. Why should we have to put up with the presence of a motherless child anyway? If you ask me, you're both just reminders of failure. I stopped in my tracks, tightening my grip on Noah's shoulder protectively. I turned slowly to face them one last time. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For what?" Cassandra asked suspiciously. "For showing me exactly who you are," I answered. "I've been recording this entire conversation, documenting your admission of child abuse and neglect. I have photos of Noah's injuries. I have everything I need to ensure you never come near my son again." The color drained from Cassandra's face as she realized the implications. Mom started to protest, but Dad, finally sensing the seriousness of the situation, stopped her with a hand on her arm. "You wouldn't," Cassandra whispered. "Watch me," I replied, my resolve hardening with each breath. "You hurt my child. There is nothing I wouldn't do to protect him now." I led Noah upstairs to pack our essential belongings, leaving my stunned family in the living room. As I helped him gather his clothes and treasured possessions, I made a silent promise to him and to Julia's memory. No one would ever hurt our son again. No one. We left the house within 30 minutes, taking only what we could fit in 2 suitcases and Noah's backpack. The storm had subsided to a light drizzle, matching the cold determination that had replaced my initial fury. Noah was silent as I buckled him into the car, his small face solemn and trusting despite everything he had endured. "Where are we going, Dad?" he finally asked as I pulled away from the curb, not looking back at the house that had proven to be anything but a sanctuary. "Somewhere safe for tonight, buddy," I assured him. "I promise you'll never have to go back there again." I drove to a modest hotel about 20 minutes away, one that was clean and secure without being expensive. After checking in, I settled Noah in front of the television with some snacks from the vending machine, while I made a series of urgent phone calls. My first call was to my best friend from college, Michael, who had become a family law attorney in Boston. Despite the late hour, he answered on the third ring. "Bree done. Everything okay?" His voice was concerned, immediately sensing something was wrong. "No, it's not," I replied, stepping into the bathroom so Noah wouldn't hear the details. "I need your help, Michael." "It's about Noah." I explained everything. The escalating hostility, the incident with Cassandra, the bruises, the recording, our hasty departure. Michael listened without interruption, and I could hear him taking notes. "Jesus Bredon," he finally said. "That's textbook child abuse and endangerment. You did the right thing getting Noah out of there. What do I do now? I asked, the adrenaline that had carried me through the evening finally ebbing, leaving me exhausted and uncertain. First thing tomorrow morning, take Noah to his pediatrician. Get those bruises documented by a medical professional. Then file a police report. The recording and photos are good, but a doctor's statement will strengthen your position significantly. Michael's voice was calm but serious. Then come to my office. We need to discuss a restraining order. A restraining order, I repeated, the reality of how drastically our lives had changed hitting me anew. Yes. Based on what you've told me, we have grounds to request a temporary order of protection for both you and Noah. It will legally prevent your sister and parents from contacting you or coming near Noah while this is investigated. After finishing with Michael, I called my boss to explain that I needed emergency family leave. To my surprise, she was immediately supportive, telling me to take whatever time I needed and that they could redistribute my projects temporarily. It was the first kindness I'd encountered in what felt like ages, and it nearly broke through the wall I'd built around my emotions. Next came the most difficult call. To Noah's school. I spoke with the principal, briefly explaining that Noah had experienced a traumatic situation involving family members and would need some time away. I also requested that the school block any attempt by my parents or sister to pick him up or make contact. The principal, hearing the gravity in my voice, assured me they would flag Noah's file immediately. Finally, I used the hotel's computer to start searching for apartments. Our budget was tight, but with the money I'd been saving for a security deposit plus what I could put on credit cards, we might manage something basic. I bookmarked several possibilities to visit the next day. When I returned to the main room, Noah had fallen asleep in front of the television, emotionally drained from his ordeal. I gently moved him to one of the beds, tucking the covers around him and brushing his hair from his forehead. Looking at his innocent face in sleep, the fierce protectiveness I felt nearly overwhelmed me. I would walk through fire before letting anyone hurt him again. My phone began buzzing with texts and missed calls from my family. I read a few of the messages. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Come home and we'll talk about this like adults. Dad, son, don't do anything hasty. Think of Noah's stability. Cassandra, if you go to the police with those recordings, you'll regret it. No one will take your side against our entire family. Their words held no power over me anymore. I blocked all their numbers and email addresses, cutting off their ability to reach us digitally. The relief was immediate and profound. Early the next morning, following Michael's advice, I took Noah to his pediatrician. Dr. Reynolds, who had been treating Noah since we moved to Boston, listened gravely to my account of what happened. She examined Noah thoroughly, documenting the bruises on his arm with photographs and detailed notes. She also noted the mild case of exposure he'd suffered from being in the rain for so long. Noah, would you mind waiting in the play area for a few minutes while I talk to your dad? Dr. Reynolds asked gently after finishing her examination. Once Noah was out of earshot, her professional demeanor gave way to controlled outrage. Breedon, this is unacceptable. Leaving a child outside in those weather conditions could have resulted in serious injury or illness. And these bruises, she shook her head. I am legally obligated to report this to Child Protective Services as suspected abuse. I understand, I nodded. I want it reported. I want it on record what they did to him. You're doing the right thing removing him from that environment, she assured me. I'll provide you with documentation for the police and courts, and I'd like to refer Noah to a child psychologist who specializes in trauma. He may seem okay on the surface, but experiences like this can have lasting effects. After leaving the doctor's office, we went directly to the police station. The officer who took our statement was professional but compassionate, especially when interviewing Noah. I provided the recordings, photos, and Dr. Reynolds' medical report. They opened a formal investigation, taking statements from us both and explaining that they would be contacting my sister and parents. From there, we met Michael at his office. He reviewed all our documentation and immediately began drafting an emergency restraining order. This will prevent them from contacting you or approaching Noah at school or anywhere else, he explained. Given the evidence, I don't anticipate any issues getting it approved by the judge. What about long term? I asked, while Noah drew quietly at a small table Michael had set up for him. They know where I work. They could show up there. We'll address that too, Michael assured me. But first, you need a safe place to live. Have you had any luck with apartments? I've found a few possibilities, but they're all at the top end of what I can afford. Michael thought for a moment. My brother owns a small rental property in Medford. It's nothing fancy, but it's a 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood. Let me call him and see if he has any vacancies. By some miracle, Michael's brother did have an available unit. It needed some cosmetic work, but he was willing to let us move in immediately and at a slightly reduced rate while the painting and minor repairs were completed. It's about 20 minutes from Noah's school, Michael told me after working out the details. Not ideal for the commute, but it would give you breathing room while we sort everything else out. That afternoon, we viewed the apartment. It was modest but clean, with 2 small bedrooms, a combined living dining area, and a functional kitchen. The building was well maintained, and there was a small playground across the street. Noah seemed to perk up at the sight of the playground, the first sign of interest he'd shown since the incident. "What do you think, buddy?" I asked as we stood in what would be his bedroom. "Could this work for us?" Noah looked around thoughtfully, then nodded. "Can I put my rocket ship poster there?" he asked, pointing to the wall. "Absolutely," I told him, relief washing over me at this small sign of him thinking about the future. "We can make this place our own." We signed the lease that day, with Michael's brother waiving the security deposit given the circumstances. The owner of the hotel, upon hearing our situation from the sympathetic night manager, allowed us to extend our stay at a reduced rate until the apartment was ready. Meanwhile, my phone continued to fill with increasingly desperate messages from my family, now coming from unfamiliar numbers since I had blocked their regular contacts. I collected these messages without responding, adding them to our growing file of documentation. The restraining order was granted 2 days later. Michael delivered the news with satisfaction, explaining that the judge had been particularly disturbed by the recording and medical evidence. "Your sister is furious," he warned me. "She's claiming the bruises were accidental and that she never intended for Noah to be outside so long. Your parents are backing her version of events." "Let them," I replied, feeling strangely calm. "The truth is documented. Noah and I know what happened." The most disturbing development came when Michael discovered through professional contacts that Cassandra had attempted to file a countersuit, claiming that Noah was unstable and that I was an unfit parent using false accusations to cover up my inadequacies. "It won't go anywhere," Michael assured me. "The evidence is overwhelmingly in your favor. But it shows how far they're willing to go to protect their image, rather than acknowledge what they did." The final piece of our immediate plan fell into place when my boss called with unexpected news. The company was opening a satellite office in Cambridge and needed someone to help establish the design department there. The position came with a slight pay increase, and, crucially, the ability to work remotely 2 days a week. "We were considering you for this anyway," she told me. "But given your current circumstances, we thought you might appreciate the flexibility and fresh start." As Noah and I prepared to move into our new apartment and begin rebuilding our lives, I reflected on how quickly everything had changed. In less than a week, we had gone from living in a toxic household to creating a new, independent life. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since Julia died, I felt truly hopeful about our future, because I had finally learned the most important lesson. Protecting my child came before any other relationship or obligation in my life. The first few weeks in our new apartment were challenging but healing. Noah and I established new routines, finding comfort in the simple rhythm of everyday life without walking on eggshells. Each morning, I would make us breakfast while Noah packed his school bag. We would listen to his favorite music on the drive to school, talking about plans for the day ahead. In the evenings, we would cook dinner together, Noah perched on a stool helping to stir pasta or set the table. These ordinary moments felt extraordinary after what we had endured. Noah started seeing Dr. Parker, the child psychologist Dr. Reynolds had recommended. Initially reluctant to talk about what happened, Noah gradually opened up during their sessions. Dr. Parker used play therapy and art to help Noah process his feelings about the abuse and abandonment he had experienced at the hands of people who should have protected him. "He's making good progress," Dr. Parker told me during one of our parent consultations. "But he has expressed fear that his aunt might take him away from you or hurt him again." "That will never happen," I assured her, and subsequently had a careful conversation with Noah, explaining the restraining order in terms he could understand. I showed him the special card from the police that had emergency contact information, teaching him that he could show it to any adult if he ever felt unsafe. Meanwhile, the legal and professional consequences for Cassandra began to unfold. The police investigation led to formal charges of child endangerment and physical abuse. When news of the charges reached her company, they launched their own internal investigation. Michael kept me updated on developments through his legal connections. "Your sister has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the criminal case," he informed me one evening. "Apparently, they take a dim view of executives who abuse children." I felt no satisfaction at her troubles, only a sense of justice being served. My focus remained entirely on Noah's recovery and our new life together. My parents attempted to contact us through increasingly desperate means. They sent letters to my workplace, tried to approach Noah at school, only to be stopped by the vigilant staff, and even sent a mutual friend to our apartment. Each attempt was documented and added to our case file, strengthening the eventual request to make the temporary restraining order permanent. The most unexpected development came about 3 weeks after we moved out. I received an email from a name I didn't recognize, with the subject line, "Your family situation." Cautiously opening it, I discovered it was from my father's sister, Aunt Teresa, whom I hadn't seen in years due to a falling out she'd had with my parents. "Dunn," the email began. "I've heard what happened with Noah from mutual family friends. I want you to know that I believe you and support your decision to protect your son. My door is open if you and Noah ever need additional family support." Her message was a reminder that family could still be a positive force, just not the particular family members I had grown up with. I replied gratefully, and we began a correspondence that eventually led to visits. Noah took to his great-aunt immediately, appreciating her warm humor and genuine interest in his life. 6 weeks after the incident, Cassandra's case went before the court. I had prepared Noah for the possibility that he might need to speak to the judge, but thanks to the abundant evidence, including the recording, medical documentation, and police reports, Noah was spared that additional trauma. Cassandra was found guilty of child endangerment and sentenced to mandatory anger management classes, community service, and a suspended jail sentence that would be enforced if she violated the permanent restraining order now in place. Additionally, the court ordered her to pay for Noah's therapy expenses. The verdict made local news, where it was reported alongside comments from child welfare advocates about the importance of protecting children from family violence. Though we were not named in the reports, Cassandra's professional reputation suffered irreparable damage. Her company, unwilling to be associated with someone convicted of child abuse, terminated her employment. My parents, who had testified in Cassandra's defense, claiming she had made a momentary error in judgment, found themselves facing social consequences as well. Friends and neighbors who learned of their role in Noah's mistreatment gradually distanced themselves. Dad's consulting clients began taking their business elsewhere, and their standing in the community they had worked so hard to maintain was permanently diminished. In contrast, our new life continued to improve. I excelled at my position in the Cambridge office, earning a proper raise after successfully launching several key projects. Noah made new friends at school and in our apartment building, slowly regaining his natural confidence and cheerfulness. We also found unexpected support through a group for single parents that met at the local community center. There, I connected with others navigating the complexities of raising children alone. The shared experiences, advice, and occasional childcare exchanges became invaluable resources. Noah enjoyed the group activities with other children who understood what it meant to have only one parent. 4 months after we left my parents' house, I received a letter from Mom. Unlike her previous attempts to contact us, which had been demanding or dismissive, this one seemed different from the first line. I have been doing a lot of thinking about what happened. She wrote that Dad had moved into the guest room, their marriage strained by the aftermath of what happened. She admitted they had been wrong to enable Cassandra's behavior and expressed remorse for not protecting Noah. The letter ended with a request to eventually consider allowing them supervised visits with Noah, when and if he is ever ready. I showed the letter to Dr. Parker, who cautioned against rushing into any reconciliation. Noah needs to feel completely safe before considering any contact with people who harmed him, she advised. And you need to be certain that they truly understand the gravity of what happened, not just regret the consequences to their lives. I wrote back to Mom, acknowledging her letter but maintaining firm boundaries. I explained that Noah's well-being was my only priority, and any potential future contact would depend on genuine change, demonstrated over time, and Noah's own wishes when he felt secure enough to express them. Around the same time, I received notification that Cassandra had moved to another state, presumably to escape the shadow of her actions and start over where her reputation hadn't been damaged. The news brought a sense of relief, knowing she was now physically distant as well as legally barred from contact. 6 months into our new life, Noah came home from school with an art project he was particularly proud of. It was a family portrait, showing him and me in front of our apartment, with a smiling angel overhead that represented Julia. But there were additional figures as well. Aunt Teresa, some friends from our single-parent group, and his favorite teacher. "This is our family now," he explained simply. Looking at his drawing, I realized he had grasped something profound that had taken me much longer to understand. Family is defined not by blood but by love, respect, and care. We had lost the family we were born into, but we had built something stronger and healthier in its place. That night, as I tucked Noah into bed, he asked a question that told me he was healing. "Dad, are you happy with our new life?" "Very happy," I answered honestly. Are you? He nodded thoughtfully. I miss Mommy still, but I don't miss being scared all the time. You never have to be scared like that again, I promised him, my voice steady with conviction. I will always keep you safe. As Noah drifted off to sleep, I reflected on how completely the tables had turned. What my sister and parents had intended as cruel punishment had instead liberated us from a toxic environment. Their attempt to assert power over us had resulted in their own social and professional downfall. And most importantly, Noah was thriving in ways he never could have in that house of conditional love and simmering resentment. We had not just survived. We had emerged stronger, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for us. The family that had rejected and hurt us now faced the consequences of their actions, while we built a new life filled with authentic connections and joy. It wasn't revenge that had brought us here, but simply the natural outcome of choosing respect, dignity, and unconditional love over the facade of family that had concealed abuse. 18 months have passed since that rainy night when I found Noah shivering on the porch. In that time, we have built a life I could never have imagined during those dark days in my parents' house. Our apartment, once sparse and temporary feeling, has become a true home. The walls are covered with Noah's artwork, family photos, and mementos of the experiences we've shared. The rocket ship poster in his room has been joined by many others, creating a personal galaxy that reflects his growing interests and personality. Noah has flourished academically and socially. His teachers report that he is excelling in math and science, showing particular talent for creative problem solving. The withdrawn, anxious child who flinched at loud noises and apologized for his existence has been replaced by a confident 9-year-old who raises his hand in class and has a circle of close friends. He still sees Dr. Parker, though now only once a month, focusing on building resilience and processing the complex emotions that occasionally surface about his mother's death and the family who rejected him. The physical bruises Cassandra left on Noah's arm faded within days, but the emotional wounds took much longer to heal. There were nights of nightmares where he would wake up crying, convinced he was locked outside in the rain. There were days when an innocent comment from a classmate about aunts or grandparents would trigger a quiet withdrawal. Gradually, with patience and consistent reassurance, these episodes became less frequent, then rare, and now almost never occur. My own journey has been one of professional growth and personal discovery. The position at the Cambridge office evolved into a role as creative director for the entire Northeast region, bringing more responsibility, but also more flexibility to be present for Noah. I've learned to set boundaries in all areas of my life, no longer accepting treatment that diminishes my worth or compromises Noah's well-being. We have received occasional updates about my birth family through mutual acquaintances and Aunt Teresa's careful filtering. Cassandra remains in another state, struggling to rebuild her career without references from her previous employer. According to Teresa, she still maintains that she was unfairly vilified for one mistake. Her inability to acknowledge the deliberate cruelty of her actions confirms that our continued separation is necessary. My parents have made more sincere efforts toward reconciliation. They completed a grandparent support group focused on healthy relationships with grandchildren, and Dad even attended therapy sessions addressing his conflict avoidance and enabling behaviors. Mom sent Noah birthday and Christmas cards with respectful notes acknowledging his choice whether to read them. These steps, while positive, are just the beginning of what would be a very long road to rebuilding trust, if Noah ever chooses to walk it. For now, Noah has expressed no interest in reconnecting with them, and I honor his feelings. When he asks about them, which happens rarely, I am truthful but measured, avoiding demonizing them while validating his experience. They made very bad choices that hurt you, I tell him. They are learning to do better, but you don't have to be around anyone who makes you feel unsafe or unloved, even if they're related to you. Our support network has expanded in beautiful and unexpected ways. Aunt Teresa has become a regular presence in our lives, visiting monthly and delighting in her role as Noah's great aunt. My friendship with Michael has deepened beyond our initial legal relationship into a true brotherhood, with his family including us in holidays and celebrations. The single parents group introduced me to Diego, now my closest friend, whose daughter Maya has become Noah's almost cousin in their words. Noah talks about his mother more openly now, asking questions about her life and incorporating her memory into our daily conversations. Mom would have loved this park, he might say as we explore a new hiking trail, or can you tell me the story about when Mom taught you to make pancakes? Each mention is a stitch in the tapestry of his identity, connecting his past to his present in healthy ways. One Sunday afternoon, as Noah and I were planting a small garden on our balcony, he asked a question that caught me off guard. Dad, do you think people can really change? I carefully set down the seedling I was holding, recognizing the weight of his question. I think some people can, if they truly want to and are willing to work hard at it, I answered. Why do you ask? Noah shrugged, pressing soil around a tiny tomato plant with focused attention. I was thinking about Aunt Cassandra and Grandma and Grandpa. Teacher says everyone deserves a second chance if they're sorry. That's often true, I agreed. But being truly sorry means understanding how you hurt someone, taking responsibility without making excuses, and changing your behavior to make sure it never happens again. And even then, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let someone back into your life if they've hurt you badly. He nodded thoughtfully. I don't hate them anymore, he said after a moment. I just don't want to see them. That's a very mature way to feel, I told him, amazed at the wisdom in his young heart. You can let go of anger without opening yourself up to more hurt. That's a form of forgiveness that's just for you, not for them. His smile then, soil smudged on his cheek and wisdom beyond his years in his eyes, told me that he was going to be okay. More than okay, he would be exceptional, his resilience forged in adversity but not defined by it. The most profound lesson I've learned through all of this is that true family is not determined by DNA or legal ties, but by consistent acts of love, respect, and protection. The people who should have been our safety net became our greatest threat, while strangers and distant connections stepped forward to create the supportive community we now cherish. I've also learned that protecting your child sometimes requires tremendous courage and sacrifice. Walking away from my birth family, despite the financial and emotional challenges it created, was the best decision I ever made. No amount of convenience, financial security, or social conformity is worth subjecting a child to abuse or neglect. The day I carried Noah from that house was the day I truly became the father he deserved, the father Julia would have expected me to be. For those watching who might be in similar situations, wondering if they're overreacting to family mistreatment or questioning if they can make it on their own, let me say this. You are stronger than you know. Your instincts to protect yourself or your children are valid. The temporary pain of separation is nothing compared to the lasting damage of remaining in toxic relationships. There are people who will help you, resources you haven't discovered yet, and a life waiting that's filled with genuine respect and love. As for Noah and me, we continue to build our life day by day, celebrating small victories and navigating occasional setbacks with the confidence that comes from having survived the worst together. We honor Julia's memory by living fully and joyfully, knowing she would be proud of the way we've rebuilt from the ruins of loss and betrayal. Sometimes the family you're born into fails you utterly. But when that happens, you discover the incredible power of choosing your family, of building connections based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation. Noah's artwork on our refrigerator says it perfectly, in the unintentionally profound way that children often do. It shows a collection of people of different ages and appearances, with the simple caption, "Family is where no one gets left out in the rain." Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect yourself or someone you love from family members? How did you find the strength to make that decision? Please share your experiences in the comments below, as your story might give someone else the courage they need today. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and healing. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful new beginnings.